Hey, what's going on, you guys? Cheers. Saturday night. Just hanging low. Spinning some records. Can't really do anything right now. But, yeah, so I'm just sitting here enjoying myself a tasty beverage, Upslope India Pale Ale, brewed in Boulder, Colorado. So, hope you're doing well. This video is pretty much a response to a video that Marty Worm posted up a couple days ago, his top 20 most meaningful albums of his teenage years. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of do one myself. I went ahead and just sifted through my collection and was able to grab 20-ish albums. I tried to stick to stuff that I had discovered in my high school years. So I graduated in 1996, and most of the stuff is stuff I discovered from the year 1992 up to 1996. I had kind of a weird musical evolution, and I actually posted a video a few months back that actually I went through all my years, starting from some of the first music that I ever heard. So there are going to be a couple albums in here I've already discussed, but in the spirit of doing response videos to all you awesome fellow YouTubers out there that I love to watch, figured I'd do my part. We'll start with the cassette tapes first. Starting, and this is really no surprise, Metallica Master of Puppets. You know, what could be said about this that hasn't been said before? It's one of the greatest records ever made, for sure. I could really pick any of the first four Metallica records, but I think this is probably my favorite one. It's really hard toss-up between this and Ride the Lightning. The first Metallica stuff I had heard was from Justice for All when I was, 8th grade or whatever. But this is the one that really hooked me, as I'm sure it did for everybody. It's a 10 out of 10 record from start to finish. I don't want to say too much about it. You know this very well. Metallica Master of Puppets. Talked about this one, Deaf Human, in that last video I was referencing, but man, this was one of three of the first death metal records that I ever heard. I kind of quickly got into death metal in my 9th grade year when a friend of mine had let me borrow some tapes, this being one of them, Deaf Human. Love all the death stuff, but this was the first one I heard and still remains to this day my favorite one, mainly because of Sean Reinert's drumming, for sure. Rest in peace. This is the album that really kind of set them apart from doing kind of what they were before this into a more sort of progressive type band. But this is another 10 out of 10, start to finish, absolutely perfect. The drumming is just so monstrous on this record. Flattening of Emotion, Suicide Machine, Together as One, Lack of Comprehension. Love the instrumental Cosmic Sea. Yep, this is the original tape that I had. Must have bought this at Camelot Records or one of those record stores back in the days. I still have all my old cassette tapes. They all still sound fine. I do have this on vinyl and CD as well. But yeah, what could be said about this? This was just an amazing record. Morbid Angel's Covenant. And this also, I love all the Morbid Angel stuff, but Covenant's probably my favorite record for sure. This is when they kind of started to blow up, and I remember seeing the videos they had on Headbangers Ball for Rapture, God of Emptiness. This is just such an amazing death metal record. Rapture, Vengeance is Mine, Blood on My Hands, and Sworn to the Black, and of course God of Emptiness. All the Morbid Angel stuff is great, but especially those first four records, everything up through, what's that one called? Gateways to Annihilation, I think is perfect. It started to kind of lose it after that, in my opinion. But yeah, Morbid Angel. Suffocation's Effigy of the Forgotten. This, another band who I love all their stuff. But this is the debut, and I remember picking this up and just being absolutely blown away by the brutality of this awesome death metal record. God, they put out so much good stuff over the years, but this still, in my opinion, is the greatest album they ever did. God, Mike Smith's drumming on this is just monstrous. I love the production. I think Scott Burns really nailed it. I think it was Scott Burns that produced this. but he really nailed it. The sound is killer, just brought out the amazing riffs that these guys were doing. The vocals are crushing. I mean, just absolutely timeless death metal album, Effigy of the Forgotten. And this is also the original tape that I bought. Must have been Camelot. It's funny because I don't even remember buying half of this shit, but probably was like, 9th or 10th grade, something like this. I mean, when did this come out? 1991, I think? Yeah, 91. So this is almost like pre-high school for me, but absolutely amazing record, man. God, I remember that breakdown in Liege of Inveracity just kind of just ripped me a new one. Before we had any kind of like breakdown type stuff. Effigy of the Forgotten, Infecting the Crypts, man, that's one of the classic songs. Seas of the Suffering, that one's absolutely awesome song. Corpse Grinder did some backing vocals on Reincarnation, and one of the other songs, or was it Mass Obliteration? Jesus Wept, man, there's just so many great tracks on this record. Just absolutely amazing. And I remember just absolutely anticipating the next album when they dropped Breeding the Spawn. I was pretty disappointed in it because the production was just so much weaker. So I should say just absolutely weak compared to this crushing sound that they had on this. And but Breeding the Spawn, still a great record. They just kind of suffered from the production a little bit, and I've kind of come to actually appreciate it now in my later years. But one of the great bands, man, Suffocation. I definitely went through sort of a punk phase, like in my early high school years, and when I was actually playing drums during that time, one of the first bands I played was like punk rock band. That shit's easy to play, easy to learn with, And so I had sort of a punk rock phase, was getting into all the classic stuff, Minor Threat, Bad Religion, Misfits, but one of my favorites would have been NoFX for sure. I already showed. I could have easily chose Punk and Drublic, which is their best album ever. But I showed that in that last video that I did for my musical evolution. So White Trash, Two Heaves and a Bean is just as great, in my opinion, as Punk and Drublic. And this was always my favorite punk rock band. I just loved how they were able to, very melodic, and they just incorporated all kinds of different styles of music. They had Straight Edge, that song, where it kind of sounds like it's Louis Armstrong singing with the trumpet. It's just amazing. Hilarious lyrics. Johnny Appleseed kind of had like a, I don't know if it was kind of ska-ish or something like that. Bugly Eyes would have that kind of sort of roaring 20s kind of sound to it. Hilarious lyrics. Great punk songs on this. Liza and Louise, Sold Out, Sticking in My Eye. Bob's a great song. Kind of fell out with these guys, and again, I had that punk rock phase, but it wasn't. I didn't go too deep in there because I was always really more into metal. But can't deny that NoFX. I mean, they had a huge influence on my musical upbringing, especially Punk and Drublic. Still to this day, just God, such an amazing record. So yeah, getting into death metal in 9th grade was really exciting because in those days we didn't have internet. We're talking 92, I think, 1992. All we had was Headbangers Ball or any kind of magazine. There was like Whip magazine. I don't even know if Metal Maniacs was out yet at that point, but discovering all this stuff was just so exciting because it was like mysterious in a way. Like you didn't know who these guys were. So for sure, I picked Cannibal Corpse's Butchered at Birth. I could have easily picked Tomb of the Mutilated or The Bleeding, which I might even like those records more than this one, but I chose this because there was just something special about this album. Their second record, the first one kind of had, their Eaten Back to Life, they were kind of finding their sound, and then this was the one where Chris Barnes really started going really low and with the growls and the vocals, and it was just so crazy sounding. I mean, not only that, but the artwork. I mean, as offensive as that is, I just think it's almost like kind of beautiful in a way. It's so cool looking. And this is definitely one of those tapes that I had to hide from my parents for sure. All the Cannibal Corpse stuff. But great band. This one, I mean, Meat Hook Sodomy, Gutted, Covered with Sores. That's an amazing song. Vomit the Soul, Glenn Benton, Rancid Amputation, man. That was one of Jim Carrey's favorite songs. But something special about this one out of the early Cannibal stuff. And great band, man. I think they're still relevant to this day. I think are still releasing great records. Those last two that they released are fantastic, Red Before Black and Skeletal Domain. Just, you know, they do what they do and they do it well. They're not reinventing the wheel, but you know, they write good songs, and they've had some missteps along the way, but you know, can't deny that Cannibal, you know, they're one of the classic death metal bands, you know. And when this came out, I was just so like, I didn't even think I'd even heard anything, but I just saw that cover and I had to buy it because it was just so not only offensive and kind of, I loved horror movies, and this just kind of fit within. You know, as a young kid, I knew, you know, I didn't take this seriously. Like, if I, you know, would have shown it to somebody, would have thought I was a freak or something like that. I mean, it's like a horror movie or something like that. But yeah, you know, Cannibal, great band. And this is the original tape as well. And probably sounds like shit. I've got it on CD, but yeah. All right, continuing in the death metal spirit, just all the stuff that was coming out at the time between Roadrunner, Metal Blade, Relapse, and Nuclear Blast. There was just so much new stuff to be discovered. But you know, this album, Gorguts, The Origin of Sanity, absolutely crucial in my musical development. Another band that I love all their stuff, but you know, everything they've done, especially the later era, is amazing. But if you had to ask me, I would say that Erosion of Sanity is still my favorite. There's just something about it. Remember, I bought this cassette tape. I was on like a band trip, like in what year it was, 93. So probably a sophomore at that point, I think. On a band trip in Orlando, Florida, to Disney World, and I remember we went to the mall, and I went to the Camelot store and picked this up. Already had Considered Dead. This had just come out. It's the same cassette I bought. Still sounds good, pretty sure. Got this on vinyl and CD as well, but you know, they kind of sort of took what Suffocation was doing and tried to work that into the sound that they were doing with Considered Dead. So this does have sort of Suffocation sort of leanings, but God, there's just a groove to this album that's just so awesome. The drummer Stephen Provencher, I don't know what happened to that guy. He was the drummer on the first two Gorguts records, and just did an amazing job, especially on this. Just there was just a flow and, you know, amazing groove to the death metal that they were doing with this. And of course, this was the last record of that sort of style before they went on to do Obscura, which was a whole other beast. But God, with Their Flesh Shall Create, there's a breakdown, like when they go into that slow part, man, it's just so, it gives me goosebumps almost. You know, they get the Condemned to Obscurity, the piano piece in the beginning, and then it leads way to that drum, the drum beat the guy's doing to lead into the track. It's so like weird and inventive. I love that song so much. The Erosion of Sanity, just a great title track. Orphans of Sickness, A Path Beyond Premonition, great song. Odors of Existence. I mean, it's just every track on this from start to finish is just absolutely amazing. And proud to still have these cassettes, man. You know, proud that I preserved these over the years. You know, because these are kind of like relics. You know, I often talk about cassettes. It's not my preferred format, but to me, it's kind of a nostalgia thing because this was the format back then, getting these cassette tapes, and you know, some of these don't sound as good as they once did. I probably didn't handle them very well, but some of them still sound fine. Great record, man. The Erosion of Sanity. So in those early 90s, a lot of great stuff was coming out of the Swedish scene as well. So many great death metal bands coming out, and there's so many I could have picked to include in this video, but I decided to go with Unleashed, Shadows in the Deep. You know, I could have easily picked Dismember, Entombed. There's so many. Desultory, At the Gates, Bolt Thrower, so many great bands, but and there was something special about this album, and I remember buying it at Camelot. It was a blind buy because I just looked at the artwork and I just thought it was so cool looking, and I love the Unleashed logo. The Unleashed logo is so cool. You know, something about this music, the first three Unleashed albums, there was Where No Life Dwells, this one, and then there was Across the Open Sea. I was really into all three of those, and there was something, you know, these guys sounded very Swedish, of course, but there was a sort of dark, brooding atmosphere to this particular record that just really kind of fit the cover art. And I always loved the Unleashed logo the most. I just think that's the coolest logo of all these bands, you know. But this one was kind of like, I almost feel like this band was not as talked about at the time, and I just felt that they really are part of that Swedish early pack of great bands. Yeah, those first three records were great, and after that, I kind of lost touch with them. They've definitely released a lot of mediocre, lackluster albums over the years, but you know, if you like this sort of stuff and you have not heard their new one, The Hunt for White Christ, what is it? The Hunt for White Christ? I can't say that. It's awesome, really great record, and I think the last couple they've done have been really good. But that newest one that just came out last year, very good songwriting, and it's just awesome, very well produced, awesome riffs. Yeah, if you haven't checked out The Hunt for White Christ, it's a fantastic record. But yeah, this one was kind of special to me. It had a special place in my heart for sure. Shadows in the Deep. Can't even read the song titles, but there was, you know, The Final Silence. The title track is a great, just sort of dark, sort of atmospheric Swedish death metal song. Never Ending Hate. Onward into Countless Battles. That's just a fun, awesome. The song sounds like the title almost. Yeah, this was before they kind of went into the more Viking kind of concept, and they sort of lost that brooding atmosphere that I felt they had on those first two records. Starting with Across the Open Sea is where they really kind of went into the more Viking style stuff, which is a great record in its own. But after that, I kind of lost touch with them. So. All right, so that's all the cassette tapes. Move on to some CDs. This next one was a special band for me growing up in New Orleans, Exhorter of the Law, and that's what we're listening to right now. This was one of the local. They were the local heroes, man, in New Orleans, and released. I could have easily picked Slaughter in the Vatican as well, which was before this. Might even be better than this one, but both of those, Slaughter in the Vatican and The Law, fantastic. Sort of that power groove thrash that Pantera popularized. Can't talk tonight. Yeah, so. Man, this one, and of course this is what you can hear right now is the Black Sabbath cover that they threw in the middle of the record. But man, this is a band that never got their due, in my opinion. And yeah, great thrash, man. So many good tracks on here. Soul Search Me, I Am the Cross, The Truth, The Law, The Cadence of the Dirge. The last track on this is, God, such a crusher. And it's funny, this was the last record they released. There was just those first two. Slaughter in the Vatican, equally just an amazing, awesome thrash record. 92, I think this came out, and this was the last thing they did. And they kind of came back over the years a few times. They would do live shows. I got to see them play live a couple times back in New Orleans. But just recently, I think it was last year, they released their third record after 20-something years of being away. It did my heart some good to see that these guys finally got something out again, even though it was just two of the original members, Vinny LaBella and the singer, Kyle Thomas. But boy, these first two, they really need to be repressed bad, because I've got a shitty cassette version of Slaughter in the Vatican. It is all messed up. It sounds, halfway through the tape, it stops working, so I don't have a good copy of that. Really need to repress both of these records at some point. But the new one they did, Mourn the Southern Skies, really good. I was, again, just really happy to see that these guys were able to release something. And after so many years of not getting their due, it's like almost like they're finally getting in again. But for sure, Exhorter, the law. All right, next up, Slayer. Now, I could have easily picked any of the early albums, but for me, it was Seasons in the Abyss. This was the first stuff I ever heard by Slayer, was War Ensemble and the title track, Seasons in the Abyss. And saw the videos on Headbangers Ball, and of course was absolutely blown away. This is probably my favorite Slayer record. Something about this one, of course, Rain of Blood, South of Heaven, all just absolutely amazing. But this one had sort of a dark melodic experimentation, if you will, to it. Every song is fantastic, and I felt like it's just a very varied Slayer record. Some of their best songwriting for sure. You went through the just absolute crushing War Ensemble, and you get into Spirit in Black. It's one of my favorite riffs, man. Spirit in Black, Expendable Youth, and Dead Skid Mask. That is just such a dark melodic song. Love that melodic thing they've got going on in the riff. Hallowed Point. I have the Decade of Aggression live album. I always love when Tom Araya would introduce all the songs. He'd say, Hallowed Point. All right, so now I've got a few sort of non-metal releases, but this was all stuff in high school that I absolutely adored. Starting with Primus, Pork Soda. It's kind of a divisive band for metalheads, because I know a lot of metalheads aren't really into this band, but I'm not embarrassed by it. I'm still, to this day, I love this band. I love everything they've done, for the most part. Pork Soda came out in 1992, I think. 91 or 92, 93. And, I was already into them with Sailing the Seas of Cheese. I love Les Claypool, man. I think he's a genius. What I love about this band is there is sort of a heaviness to Primus, especially this record. This is probably their heaviest record, I think. It was Pork Soda. But what I love, a lot of people just don't take them seriously, and I don't think they take themselves seriously, but nobody sounds like these guys. They were like the cartoon version of Rush or something, Power Trio. Absolutely love the drummer Herb, one of the great drummers, just such a great groove drummer that experimented with all kinds of different types of drums and cymbals. And Les Claypool, the thing about Primus is that the bass sort of carries the song rather than the guitar. And this record, man, always loved Primus, and this was a really big one for me in those early high school years, having just came out. So many great tracks on here. Just really some bizarre stuff too. Some of the tracks later in. Les Claypool, I think he's a genius. Absolutely love Primus, and I loved them then, and I still love them now. I go see them anytime they come and play. Yeah, so next up, Nine Inch Nails was a big one in those days, and I really, I wasn't really like a big industrial fan or anything like that, but this band was huge for me. Pretty Hate Machine. I could have easily picked Downward Spiral as well, or Broken. After Downward Spiral, I kind of moved away from this band, but as far as non-metal stuff, this album, it was just different. It was something new, and a lot of great tracks on here. Sanctified, Terrible Lie, Sin, Ring Finger, The Only Time. It's just kind of a timeless record. Pretty Hate Machine. So, kind of shifting over to some more thrash kind of stuff. I remember seeing the video, and this was for my introduction to Overkill, Horoscope, and seeing the video for Thanks for Nothing on Headbangers Ball. Loved it. Loved Blitz's vocals. It was just awesome riffs. You know, I haven't really kept up with Overkill very well over the years, but I really loved this record in my high school years. I listened to this a lot. There was a lot of good songs, a lot of sort of variation in the way they wrote the songs on this. Whereas like later they kind of just became sort of run-of-the-mill thrash, you could say. I really need to go back and revisit some of the more recent records that they've released, but yeah, Horoscope, and to this day, just a great record from start to finish. Boy, the record they put out after this was a piece of shit. I Hear Black, I think it was called. I remember buying that and being like, what the hell happened? You know, and I had then at that point lost it. Later on, in the next couple records they put out, they went really back to the thrash style that they were so good at. But yeah, there was something special about Horoscope. I think this was kind of maybe like one of their more, I don't want to say experimental records, but just in terms of songwriting, just a lot of variation in the melodies that they used, and Blitz's vocals are just killer. You know, in those years, Tool was big. I mean, Enema. I mean, this was definitely, and still is, my favorite Tool record. Boy, this would have came out my senior year of high school, 96. But, you know, love them or hate them, yeah, they're huge. And Tool fans are kind of aggravating, and you know, I kind of get sick of the whole thing. But you know, there's no denying that this was, I mean, this was an absolutely fantastic record at its time that it came out. Those first three Tool records, just timeless albums. And I think that this, of our generation, at least my generation, this is one of the biggest bands. You know, especially having a sort of progressive edge to it, and you know, this was our band in a way. So, you know, what they've become, sure, I've still kind of given them time, but I just don't think they ever topped this. And the records that came after this, I kind of lost interest, even though they're still good albums. But you know, Tool, Enema, absolutely. All right, a couple more CDs. Started with Dream Theater's Images and Words. I remember seeing the video for Pull Me Under and being blown away. This was something wholly, completely different, progressive kind of thing that I had never even really heard. Absolutely love that song, Pull Me Under. And I was kind of surprised when I first bought this, because that song had sort of a dark vibe to it. And the rest of this record is a little bit more bright and happy, I guess. But fantastic record, beautiful, great songs. Another Day, Take the Time, The Metropolis Part 1, Wait for Sleep. There was a lot of great tracks on this, and really, this is really the only Dream Theater album that I really care about. I tried to follow them a bit after this. I liked Awake, and I did like Metropolis Part 2 was a pretty good record. After that, I pretty much lost touch with these guys. I checked in over the years from time to time, and they just never did anything that just did it for me at all. And fantastic musicians, fantastic. Mike Portnoy was such a great drummer, but they just didn't do anything for me after Metropolis. And every now and then I check in and see what they're doing, and it feels just kind of the same. It seems like I just feel like they've lost that the songwriting that they had on this. It kind of just turns into like wankery or something. But Dream Theater's Images and Words. I'll never forget that video, and LaBrie had a Napalm Death shirt on. Kind of gave them that metal cred, even though they weren't metal at all. But yeah, can't deny this one. Fantastic, absolutely awesome album. Still to this day, I love it. All right, and then there was King Diamond. This record, I mean, this would have been, I mean, obviously this came out in '88, so this is way before, you know, high school. Remember hearing about King Diamond and, you know, hearing that he was a pretty scary guy or something like that, but picked this up and was absolutely blown away by it. I loved the sort of horror storytelling that he was doing with this, and it kind of made it feel like everything was actually real, like you didn't know what was real or not. But got the first drum fill by Mickey D on Out From the Asylum, or Welcome Home, I'm sorry. That first drum fill, man, it's just absolutely killer. And so many great tracks on this. I love Merciful Fate as well, but I was always kind of more partial to King Diamond's solo stuff, and them, for sure. So many great records. Everything Up Through the Eye is fantastic. I loved it so much. Before I actually had found a CD copy of it, I actually made my own cassette tape, and I drew all the artwork. Let's see how well you can see that. But I was feeling creative when I was in 9th, 10th grade or whatever it was, and kind of made my own little thing here. I even put out a sheet of loose leaf, drew some stuff and put the band members and the track listing. This one actually had them and Conspiracy on this, and I opened it up with a piece of loose leaf, poked holes in to make a cassette. Loved it. Don't even remember doing this, but, you know, guess I was feeling creative. King Diamond, man. He hasn't really put out a record in a long time that I've really been into, but kind of really hoping now that he's a lot healthier and he's going to be coming out with something new, I'm really hoping he's got Andy LaRock, you know, it's got hopefully going to be something good. But yeah, King Diamond, no denying. I mean, this is so impactful for me in my high school years, for sure. All right, I just got a few left. These are all on vinyl, and yeah, starting with Megadeth, rest in peace. I've already talked about this on my last video with this sort of theme, but just cannot overstate how important this album was for me. I mean, this would have been 91, 92, 90, 1990. I mean, I had the CD. I showed the CD last time, but I do have it on vinyl, of course. Absolutely essential album for me. So important. God, I listened to this thing just over and over again. Hands down, greatest thrash album ever made. Just absolutely fantastic, and you know, never topped it. And I don't think anybody ever did. Just the riffs on this thing, just the style, just every song, just absolutely amazing. But yeah, Megadeth for sure. Showed this one too on CD on that last video, but I cannot as well overstate how important this album is to me still to this day. Cynic's Focus. Came out probably 1993. I remember when it first came out, I had it on cassette tape. I lost the cassette. I've got it on CD, and then this is one of the more recent vinyl pressings that came out in the last couple of years. But absolutely so influential for me. It took me a while to get into the robotic vocals in the beginning, but in time I warmed up to it, and just the absolute way that this just swept me away and to another dimension or something in the absolutely gorgeosity of this album and the timeless and amazing drumming of Sean Reinert. Just still to this day, I can't see in my head what the hell he's doing on the drums sometimes. He had just such a unique style to the way he played, and you know, this record was kind of not understood when it first came out, but I absolutely loved it, and was glad to see that they came back after so many years. And still to this day, my favorite drummer. Rest in peace, Sean Reinert. I just can't believe he's dead, man. That's too young, but yeah. Showed Sepultura, Arise would definitely be my favorite. I showed that one on this last one, and there's no denying that Beneath the Remains is equally as great album. So important for me. Igor was another drummer that I just was absolutely blown away by. And Scott Burns did a great job. I love that picture of them. But yeah, Beneath the Remains, absolutely amazing. Kind of going through these a little bit quicker because we're going on a little bit too long here. But Maiden, I showed Seventh Son and the Seventh Son was probably my favorite record. I showed that on that last video. But this is a close second, Somewhere in Time. I had this on cassette tape. It's a newer vinyl, but just equally as amazing as Somewhere in Time. I'm sorry, Seventh Son. Just some of their best songwriting. Every track on here is amazing. Caught Somewhere in Time. Wasted Years, probably my favorite Maiden song. Sea of Madness, that's a great song. They never play that one live. I never understood why they never play Sea of Madness. But Heaven Can Wait. You know, Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner. Stranger in a Strange Land. Deja Vu. Every song. Alexander the Great. That's just God, Maiden was just killing it in those years, and yeah, man, Somewhere in Time, absolutely just awesome. All right, I got one more left, and this one, God, this was so influential for me. You know, being from New Orleans, was Acid Bath, When the Kite String Pops, and God, I mean, this came out '94, I think. I had this on cassette tape and CD. I lost both the cassette and the CD, unfortunately. This is one of the newer, more recent pressings. It was kind of like I think a popsicle variant or something like that. It was like a green, purple and orange, grape and orange, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, man, God, I mean, there's no band, I mean, this band is unto themselves. Nobody sounds like them. Nobody has ever been able to imitate them. And, you know, I'm sad that they never got to keep it going. You know, it was something that was almost like too good to be true because the band members really wanted to go in different directions. And unfortunately, anybody that was in this band that went on to do other bands just have never topped what they did with Acid Bath. You know, there was Dax Riggs, the vocalist, who, his vocals on this just absolutely soulful crooning, but dark and disturbing or something. You know, he went on to do a couple other bands, Agents of Oblivion, and he did his own, I think he's still doing like his own solo project, but I don't think any of that stuff ever really picked up. Sammy went on with Goatwhore, who was a solid band in their own right, but never ever came close to doing what this did. And the follow-up to this was a good record too, but I mean, nothing could compare to When the Kite String Pops. Every song on this is just absolutely amazing. Just you know, it had that sort of extreme metal style to it, but also that sort of psychedelic, drug-infused madness or something. Melodic, poetic. Definitely drugs involved in this one, I'm sure. But so many great songs, man. Screaming the Butterfly, you know, The Blue, Tranquilized, God Machine, Bones of Baby Dolls, Cassidy's Cockroaches. God, this is essential album for me. And I actually got to see the last show these guys ever played in New Orleans when Audie, the bassist, died in a car crash. That really kind of sealed the end of the band because he was kind of like the glue that held all those members together. But they actually announced they had gotten a new bass player and were going to continue the band. They never did, but I got to see that last show they played at Zeppelin's in Metairie, Louisiana, with the new bassist. And, I'm pretty sure that's the last show they played. I don't think they ever, and then that was it, unfortunately. But yeah, one of the great bands to come out of New Orleans, and absolutely essential for me. That's all I've got, guys. It's kind of going on a little too long, but yeah, man, cheers. Thanks for all your killer comments on my recent hiking metal video, The Passing of Valfar, where I talked about Windeer, and yeah, I put a lot of work into that video, so I'm glad that some of you guys enjoyed that. It took a lot of time for me to research that, edit it together, shoot it, all that kind of stuff, so I really appreciate it. I actually got some good comments. Marty mentioned on there that he had heard that Valfar was actually at a bar before he set out for the family cabin and that he was drunk. That would make sense. I wonder if that's really what happened. You know, my hope with that video was that, you know, I would get some good feedback because I really kind of want to know more details of what happened on that day. But yeah, if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. It's the last video I posted, Hiking Metal 04, The Passing of Valfar. Put a lot of work into it, so I hope you enjoy it. And I just hit 200 subscribers, so that's pretty cool. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate that. If you like the videos, keep subscribing. You know, if you guys dig it, I'll keep shooting it, you know. So stay safe out there, guys. Cheers.